The Forgotten Trail. Nestled in the dense wilderness of the Pacific Northwest, where ancient evergreens towered like silent guardians and mist clung to the underbrush like a shroud, lay the Blackwood Forest. Spanning thousands of acres, it was a haven for hikers, but locals avoided the old trails. Paths etched by loggers a century ago, now overgrown and forgotten. Whispers in the nearby town of Eldridge spoke of the Loop, a trail that ensnared wanderers, leading them in circles until madness or something worse claimed them. Disappearances were chalked up to bears or exposure, but those who returned babbled of shadows that mimicked their steps and trees that whispered secrets. I'm Sarah Klein, a 28-year-old freelance photographer from Seattle, seeking inspiration after a brutal breakup. My ex had called me obsessed with my work, but capturing the raw beauty of nature was my escape. Armed with my camera, backpack, and a GPS app, I drove to Eldridge on a crisp autumn morning. The ranger station was closed, budget cuts, but a faded map on the bulletin board showed the main trails. One caught my eye, an unmarked dotted line labeled Loggers Loop, closed. Intrigued by the forbidden allure, I snapped a photo and headed in. The forest enveloped me immediately, sunlight filtering through the canopy in golden shafts. Birds chirped, and the air smelled of pine and earth. I followed the main path for an hour before veering onto the dotted line, drawn by curiosity. The trail narrowed, roots snaking across the dirt like veins. My GPS glitched briefly, signal weak under the trees, but it stabilized. Just a loop, I muttered. Out and back in 2 hours. Deeper in, the woods grew unnaturally quiet. No birds, no rustling leaves, only my footsteps crunching. I paused to photograph a massive fallen log, moss-covered and rotting. As I framed the shot, a twig snapped behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Probably a deer. Continuing, I noticed odd markings on the trees, crude carvings, spirals and eyes, weathered but deliberate. Petroglyphs. I zoomed in with my lens, but the symbols seemed to shift slightly, like optical illusions. The trail curved, and soon I recognized a familiar boulder. Had I looped already? My GPS showed straight progress. Shrugging it off, I pressed on. The mist thickened, coiling around trunks like smoke. Then, the whispers started. Faint, like wind through branches, but forming words. Lost. Again. I froze, heart racing. Wind, I told myself. But the air was still, hours blurred. The sun should have been higher, but the light dimmed to twilight hues. My watch said only noon. Panic flickered. I checked the GPS. It looped the path endlessly, my dots spinning in circles. Battery at 80%. No issue there. I backtracked, but every turn led to the same carved trees, the same log. Exhaustion set in. I sat on a stump, gulping water. That's when I saw it. A figure in the distance, silhouetted against the fog. Human-shaped, but elongated, limbs too long. It mirrored my posture, sitting, head in hands. "Hello?" I called. No response. It stood when I did, mimicking my steps as I approached. Closer, its features resolved. Pale skin stretched over bones, eyes hollow pits. It wore tattered clothes, like an old logger's flannel. Terror surged. I ran the opposite way, branches whipping my face. But the trail curved back, and there it was again, closer now, grinning with rotted teeth. I sprinted, lungs burning, until I tripped over a root. My camera shattered on impact. Gasping, I looked up. Multiples now, shadows detaching from trees, each a twisted echo of hikers past. Backpacks slung, faces contorted in eternal screams. They whispered in unison. "Join the loop. Forever." Desperation fueled me. I clawed through underbrush, off trail, thorns tearing my skin. The forest fought back. Vines snagged my ankles. Roots rose like traps. A clearing emerged, an old loggers' camp, rusted axes embedded in stumps, cabins collapsed into decay. In the center, a stone altar etched with those spirals. On it lay bones, human, scattered like offerings. The shadows converged, their forms solidifying. One stepped forward, its voice a rasp. The forest remembers. It traps the intruders, feeds on their fear. It reached out, fingers like twigs snapping. I grabbed a loose axe, swinging wildly. The blade passed through it like smoke, but it recoiled, hissing. Insight struck, the carvings. They were wards, or perhaps keys. I raced to the nearest tree, scraping at the symbols with the axe. The wood bled sap, dark and viscous. The shadows wailed, the ground trembling. I destroyed another, then another. The mist lifted slightly, revealing a straight path out. I bolted, axe in hand, the echoes pursuing, footsteps pounding behind, whispers turning to shrieks. The trees thinned, sunlight piercing through. I burst onto the main trail, collapsing at the ranger station. It was open now, a concerned ranger rushing out. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I babbled about the loop, the shadows. He nodded grimly. "Old tales. Folks go missing every year. You're lucky, most don't come back." That night, in my motel, I developed the photos from my backup SD card. Most were normal, but the last ones. Shadows in the frames, figures mimicking my poses. And in the mirror, as I brushed my teeth, a faint outline behind me, elongated, watching. I left Eldridge at dawn, but the whispers follow. In city crowds, in quiet moments. Lost. Again. The forest calls me back. One day, I fear, I'll answer. Epilogue: The Next Wanderer. A week later, a group of college kids found the map photo on social media, tagged #HiddenTrails. Laughing off warnings, they ventured in. By nightfall, their laughter turned to screams, echoing through the loop. The forest grows hungrier.